Welcome back to the Homespa Beauty Podcast. I'm so happy to share with you my latest chat, and it's with Dr Ahmed Muntasar, better known to you as Dr Ahmed, the aesthetics doctor. We had a great chat, lots of laughter. We also covered a lot of serious topics. I, as someone who doesn't know too much about the aesthetics treatments, I only know what most of us know about the most common things such as your Botox, your injectables. Well, Dr Ahmed was able to shine a light on his most common procedures that he does for people, the ones that have the most effect, why he won't treat someone, why it's important to go to someone that's registered and is a doctor. And we also spoke about the glamorous side of what he does. I think it's also interesting if you listen to hear about Dr Ahmed's recent experiences working as an NHS frontline doctor, specifically when COVID was really hitting hard. It really did cover lots of areas, lots of highs and lots of challenging times for him. But overall, as I say, we laughed a lot. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. Well, Dr Ahmed, it's so lovely to speak with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Oh, well, and you are so busy. So would you say on a typical week, you never actually know what's going to be ahead the next week, the next month? Is it just they always change?
My diary changes almost daily sometimes. What's regular for me is my Mondays and Tuesdays and sometimes Wednesdays. Those are always NHS days because during the pandemic, I went back to the NHS full time. In fact, I was on the COVID wards for about 10 months, actually. And as you can imagine, that was interesting. Interesting, let's just say that. And then the rest of my week is aesthetics, social media, and other fun bits and bobs that I really enjoy, to be fair.
Oh, I think that's a really nice balance. And talking about that, so you're award winning, so you must have that side of things where you feel as if it must be great to have the appreciation of what you do. But then, like you say, and we'll get into the aesthetic side, through COVID, that must have been such a strange, like complete opposites of the spectrum of what you do. Was that like nothing you've ever experienced before?
Honestly, it was so challenging. It challenged me down to my core, really. I mean, it was one of those moments when you really had to sit down and reflect on what you're doing in life and where you're going with things. Because ultimately, I trained to be a doctor to help people. And I know it's such a cliche to say, but it is true. And I remember when the pandemic started, unfortunately, one of the first people to lose their life as a doctor in Manchester was a Libyan doctor. So I'm Libyan by background as well. And it just hit me really hard. It could have been me. You know what I mean? It could have easily been one of my loved ones. And it just gave me that kick up the bum to be like, it's time. Let's crack on. Let's go back to the NHS and just get this sorted. And I'd like to think my teeny tiny little parts helped somewhere.
But honestly, I'm sure from myself and from everyone, thank you, because it still feels like it was yesterday. And yet here we are. We're sort of moving into normality. And I think that does lead us on to what you do, because I am so looking forward to asking you some of the questions that many people, such as myself, misconceptions, fears, because we see people having amazing little tweakments, as you call them. And then obviously we see people, some of them are celebrities, sometimes it's just in Instagram, and you think, oh, that's a bit much. So it would be great to ask you your professional opinion. And I'd like to start off by asking, what would you say is the most common treatment that people come to you for?
Well, with my clients or patients, I'm quite lucky that as much as they select me, I select them as well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because actually, no, I don't inject anyone unless I'm happy with why they're there. And I think this is where my GP background comes in. There's something called ICE, which is ideas, concerns, and expectations. And this is always a good model to follow when you want to know, why is that patient there? Why are you really sat in that chair? You know? And actually, when you try to understand a bit more about what's their ideas of the treatment, what's the outcome they're expecting, and if there's anything they're concerned about, once you've answered those three questions, you really suss out the people that are getting the treatment for the wrong reason. And those get an Uber home.
I like it, because I think I am in the beauty industry, been in it for over 20 years, and I am not against treatments. It's just that I think that sometimes maybe you're fortunate that you haven't felt that you've needed to get something done. Maybe no one's told you it's time you had it done. But
ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Some people will say, listen, you look a wee bit tired. But I see sometimes within the beauty industry, people that I've got the HND, which means you've got your 2 years of anatomy and physiology. So that could get you into a certain level of medical training. But it does always concern me when people in my industry say, I'm going to go and do injectables, and they can have legitimate courses and the course is completely certified and they are safe in what they're doing, but it frightens me. So is that something, again, that you've had experience of, where people have maybe come to you and they've had the treatments by someone technically beauty trained?
It is something that horrifies me. It really stops me from sleeping at night sometimes. I've seen some horror stories over the years. I mean, walking down a high street of any big city these days, you'll see beauty shops as, you know, you'll get your lashes, your eyelash perm, and your lip filler done all in the same sitting. That's not normal. That's not okay, really. And actually, the UK is the only developed country in the world where it allows non-medics to inject. And I think that is disastrous, really, because ultimately, it's not actually about being able to inject. If you take anyone off the street and, you know, teach them how to use a needle and syringe and so on, they'll be able to inject. But actually, it's not about that. It's about being able to deal with the complication. Because ultimately, if, you know, knock on wood, hopefully that never happens to anyone, but someone gets a blocked blood vessel. Because if you think about it, if this is your needle and you go into a blood vessel, you can block the blood flow. So the destination of the blood, wherever it's going, that destination is going to be deprived from oxygen and nutrients. So essentially that part will die. And there are certain blood vessels around the lips that actually go all the way supplying the orbit, i.e. the eyes. So you can technically blind someone from a simple lip filler injection.
So you really do need to come to someone like yourself. I was so frightened at college. I wouldn't even do the teeth gems. And that was a day of training where you were gluing. I was like, I don't want to do anything to do with teeth. Nope. No. No tooth gems, thank you. So I always felt that's medical, that's beauty. And I just always thought, no, I don't want to do that. So I would definitely be coming to someone like yourself. And that also leads me on to, again, it's all the hot topics. It's great to be able to ask you your honest opinion. Do you think that people are starting some things too young? Because I'm in my 40s, so I would think that I'm the perfect age for you to say, right, we'll start you on this, and this. Do you think some people are starting way too young and you have to say to them, you can do this, but you do not need this?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's only last year that it became illegal for under 18s to get derma fillers and Botox. It was only end of 2021. That's obscene. Like, that's crazy that a 14-year-old can go and get filler done somewhere.
No idea.
I think it was October or September last year that Parliament made it a law that actually it's illegal. And that to me is crazy. I've never seen that in any other country in the world, really. And actually, over the years, I will be getting messages from moms, be like, oh yeah, for my daughter's 15th birthday, can I bring her in for a treatment? And I was like, no. please keep your mothering to yourself. What is this? And actually, it takes a lot to be able to say no to patients sometimes, especially for a lot of injectors, if they're in the beginning of their career. Ultimately, they're probably struggling with money, struggling with this and building the reputation and so on. But I think we need to always remember that we are medical for a reason. And actually, we're doctors, nurses, pharmacists, midwife, whatever we are. And we've, sworn an oath to do no harm. And actually, if you inject anyone that doesn't need that treatment, you're basically doing them harm. But going back to your question, essentially, I do think starting early with medical grade skincare is fundamental. because actually there's so many skincare products out there. I always recommend medical grade things. What I mean by that, this is basically somewhere that's a bit more than just a high street products you can get. You get this from a doctor or from a medical clinic that we prescribe for our patients, and the ingredients are much more potent and they go deep into your skin. That can really keep your skin going for years and years and years, and kind of keep you away from injectables potentially for a long period of time. Plus, if you've had injectables to start with, it will keep your results going for longer.
Ah, see, that's something, again, a lot of people wouldn't realize that that's a big part of what you do. And you're so right. If you can help maintain the health of the skin and the look of the skin, that would make sense.
Absolutely.
And then this leads me on to my favorite thing, which is the skills that you have. Being able to take someone that maybe has something, and sometimes nature does give you uneven lips or a bump in your nose. Some people, they can't help the fact that they're told basically they look tired all the time, and it's not their fault. The skills that you've got to change that, is there a type of treatment or a type of injection that you do and you know that the results are going to be quick and dramatic, and you just know that person is going to be just so happy?
I think one of the most truly life-changing procedures that we do is the non-surgical rhinoplasty or the non-surgical nose jobs. Especially for certain ethnicities, like Arab, similar background to me, or Pakistani or Indian, there's a lot of stigma with having, larger noses or certain bumps along the bridge. And culturally, they're very much critiqued and pointed out. So it really develops a lot of issues within individuals, and actually having that kind of, not complex, but more of an awareness that, I do have a bump. Oh, the tip of my nose does droop and so on. And sometimes people don't want to go down the surgery route because actually surgery is expensive, it's invasive, and it's quite unpredictable sometimes because actually you don't know the final results of your nose until almost a year later when all the swelling is gone. So having a 10-minute procedure that can ultimately completely sculpt your nose and enhance the features that you've got to start with could be really life-changing for people. And this is the one that it's very much brings tears to a lot of my patients' eyes.
And I have seen on your Instagram too, some of the before and afters. It is amazing. And is that something, when that came on the scene, was that something that you thought, oh, straight away, put it this way, can you tell when there's something that you want to train in versus something that you think, I don't think I'm really bothered about that so much? Was that one you're like, oh, that's getting done?
To be honest with you, I get messages about new treatments probably daily.
Oh, really?
And I think over time, you can start smelling the BS from very far away. You're like, so this little treatment will completely change. Right.
No.
Probably not. But I remember when I came across the non-surgical rhinoplasty or the tear troughs treatment, sometimes they're a bit too good to be true. And it actually took me a bit of time to see the results and actually do it myself, the procedure on others, to really understand how dramatic the results can be, but also how subtle the results can be sometimes. Because actually sometimes people don't want that like wow factor. They just want that little teeny tiny little difference that they know that it's there. And that gives them enough joy really, rather than just something that other people can notice.
See, I just think, like you say, having looked at the before and afters, you're right. Sometimes it might not look as if it was a big dramatic difference, but the end result looks, when they say it looks beautiful, it literally looks like a beautiful nose. And it looks as if all you've done is, we'll put it this way, to someone that's not medically trained, it looks as if they've had surgery.
Yeah. Without the downtime, without the complications, without the casts on top of your nose for 12 weeks. It's much, much simpler.
Oh, fantastic. And when did you realize yourself that you were building a reputation and that people were really starting to flock towards you and you were beginning to be spoken about? When did that start to happen?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I just remember this clearly. I was sat down in my London clinic and I had a patient come in with suitcases. I was like, is this woman moving in? I was like, what is happening right now? And she's like, oh no, I just flew in from Detroit to come for a treatment. What? I was like, I beg your pardon. And I remember she was my first international patient to fly in for a treatment. And then over the years, that started being a regular occurrence. I mean, this is pre-COVID. Patients will be flying in from Australia, LA, New York, the Middle East, South Africa for treatments. And that was really an aha moment in a way, because I was like, I'm doing something. I was like, something is happening here. And I guess it just snowballed from there.
That's something, because again, you're asked to speak to different media outlets, you're asked to write. Is there anything that's happened, whether it be a celebrity or again an opportunity, and you've thought, this is a wow moment?
Yeah, there's been a few really. I mean, recently I've just been in British Vogue, and that was a really, really big moment for me, really. I'm the first ever Libyan doctor to be in British Vogue, which is crazy. I mean, saying that. I've done American Forbes. Again, I was the first Libyan doctor to do American Forbes. And then a couple of months ago, actually, I presented at MCAS, which is a conference in Paris, but it's the biggest dermatology conference in the world. And I was one of the headliners this year. So that was insane, really. It's something that people do at the end of their career. And I was there like, hello, guys.
That is absolutely fantastic. So does that drive you on? Do you get to the point where you can actually innovate treatments? Are you getting to that stage where you're actually taking your skills and you're pushing things on, and then other doctors are following your lead?
That's been happening over the last couple of years now, where I'm kind of, with treatments out there, you essentially get the kind of recommendation from the manufacturer. But then with time, you develop that relationship with manufacturers where you can actually start coming up with new indications for treatments. And that's something that I'm starting to do with a few different treatments. Actually, well, it's not just used for the face. You can actually use it for the hands. Oh, it's not just used for the hands. You can use it for the décolleté. And actually, you develop that kind of new techniques and your own flavor of doing things. And ultimately, that's something I love doing, because essentially I'm sculpting someone's face or neck or body or whatever it is. And it just gives me a lot of joy to be able to have that freedom, obviously, to do what the safe treatments and the effective treatments I offer.
And see, you spoke about sculpting, and that when I think of aesthetics and sculpting, sometimes people like the Kardashians and Megan Fox come into my mind, because I think that they've had a beautiful evolution. Mm-hmm. And I know that some people knock them. And I suppose there's always an argument with someone that's in the public eye, that you could always say maybe they've took something a little bit too far, but I'm sure you know how to then pull it back. But I think there has to be an appreciation for when a doctor has worked with someone and actually evolved their look. Yeah. It's obviously been some sort of joint venture. And I always think that the results can be beautiful, really breathtaking, when you can see someone started off looking beautiful, but then they can evolve just using these clever techniques, and then they go from beautiful to wow.
That wow factor.
Yeah. And is that something you must know straight away? Oh, they've had this, they've had that. You must be able to spot it immediately.
I mean, absolutely. I see it from both sides, really. I see it from the kind of celebrities that have never had anything done and they want to come in for a consultation and see what's suitable. But I also see it from the sense of some celebrities that have been somewhere else, didn't have the best experience, and actually they come in for, dissolving or changing things up or repairing what's going on. But over the years, I've had so many conversations with these celebrities. Ultimately, the media and social media particularly critiquing people and actually giving them oh, have you seen what she's done to her face? Have you seen what? That does nothing but really kind of just confuses, but it really messes up with people's sense of self. And I think that contributes a lot to BDD, like body dysmorphia disorder and other things out there. I guess you can guess some people say, oh, well, they chose to be in the public eye. Yes, that's true, but they didn't choose to be critiqued by millions of people all the time. So I think it's a bit of a tough one, really. Yeah. But I think if they go to the right doctor, like Kim Kardashian or Chloe. I think Chloe has had fabulous work done.
Wow.
Face, neck, body. She has had an incredible transformation, to be honest with you. I think money well spent.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. Even if you don't agree with reality shows or you don't agree with things, credit where it's due. That's beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. And do you have anyone that you've worked with for a while, celebrity, non-celebrity, and you have your own evolution with them and you've got them from a stage and you just think when they come in, oh, we've done such a beautiful job on you?
Absolutely. I don't know if you're aware of Sophia Hadjibentelli. She's the social media model with the monobrow. Do you know who I'm referring to? So she moved from America to the UK. She was young. She's 18, 19 years old at the time, and went somewhere that were not doctor-based clinic. And they absolutely botched her lips at the time. And actually it took us 3, 4, 5 months to dissolve everything and start fresh. And really the evolution of her face, her lips in particular, and what treatment she's had done over the years have been incredible. I mean, now she's, on the cover of Italian Vogue. She's been on Billboard. She's the face of Jean Gaultier at the moment. It is really incredible. And every time I'm driving somewhere, I see her face and I was like,
we've done a good job there.
I was like,
yeah, quite right. Pat yourself on the back, quite right. And that's another thing too. When you are working with people, I've always wondered when people have overdone it on their lips and then they say that they've had them dissolved. Can you genuinely go back to what they were like, or are they always going to be slightly altered? I've just always been curious if you've really overdone it. When you dissolve it, is the shape going to be changed to a point because of what you did?
If you've very much overdone it, and I'm saying syringes and syringes and huge, dissolving, if you think about it, so filler is made from hyaluronic acid, right? And then the dissolving agent is hyaluronidase, which is basically the enzyme that breaks down hyaluronic acid. So that enzyme will break the filler hyaluronic acid, but also it's going to break some of your own hyaluronic acid because that enzyme can distinguish which is which. So actually, if things have been stretched out so much over, years of buildup, the shape after dissolving might not be the exact same as before starting treatments, actually. And I've seen that with a lot of that kind of overdone look that, they've had years and years of filler buildup, migration, and probably terrible filler types as well. Because not fillers all made the same. Some of the cheaper types, they're not the one, really. So even when you dissolve them, they don't dissolve fully. So even the remnants of that might take multiple sessions for them to completely go away.
So the classic, you get what you pay for. Would you warn anyone, do not think bargains, do not think special offers when it comes to something like this? Go for the best.
Absolutely. I mean, I get messages day in and day out from people saying, well, Sally down the road offers lips for £30. Why are you charging XXX? And I'm like, Sally's using cement. She is botching you, sweetie.
I am so glad that you said that because I can be a bit squeamish watching certain shows, but I did watch Botched and I did actually, I might have closed my eyes at some bit, but you get hooked on the story and you get hooked on the repairs. Is that something, if you were asked to do a version here, is that something that you could see yourself doing?
Oh, absolutely. I love those sort of shows. And that's really why I started doing medicine, because it's ultimately, I do what I do, not just for the results, but it's about how you make someone feel, because that's really the ultimate result. And I think sometimes some of the best results are actually when you undo someone else's work.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually when you get the satisfaction of just bringing someone back to baseline could be really, really satisfying. So I think those types of shows, I would love to do the British Botched.
I can just tell by, again, you're making me feel at ease. And, sometimes you do get people in any profession that can be a bit difficult to relate to, or they can sometimes be, you sometimes get it in the medical profession where they talk down to people. And I can tell straight away that you're, like you say, if someone is not making you feel like they're the right type of client, or you can sense, everyone can sense trouble. If I've worked with someone just for a beauty treatment, you can tell if you've got this one's going to be
You're like,
coming back. No, you get that energy, don't you? So I could imagine there'll be situations where you get someone coming to you, they're very unhappy with something that's been done, and you're thinking in your mind, I can fix this, no problem.
Yeah.
And they have no idea. They've been walking about thinking this is an unrepairable situation, and you've got the ability to say, we can do this, we can fix this.
But that specific individual you're referring to, for example, has got insight. Mm-hmm. Trouble arises sometimes when the patient doesn't have insight. It's when someone comes in and they're like, oh, I just want to get some more lip filler. And I was like, who has done your lips? And those are the patients that actually, when they look in the mirror, they're like, oh, is it not normal that the filler looks like a mustache above my lips? We're like, no. that's not how it's meant to look. Oh, I never knew. I just thought that's how, if it was their first time getting a treatment done, they don't have a reference point. So that's, to them, that's normal, actually. And sometimes talking that patient off getting more treatment and actually saying, let's just dissolve and start fresh, could be a very difficult conversation. And I think this is where I put my GP hat on. I'm like, let's utilize those communication skills that we built up. Let's talk about this.
That's why you do what you do. And that also leads me, talking about the GP skills, when you go onto your website, it's very clear. It is not just about a tweak here and a tweak there. You do so much for people. Acne is a big one.
Yes.
Do you get a lot of people coming to you? Because it's emotional, it's physical, it's everything, isn't it?
I mean, during the pandemic, really, obviously our clinics were shut in physically, but actually we were doing so much work from home when it comes to skincare. People with acne, scarring, rosacea, hyperpigmentation, these things were issues that people dealt with for years and years and years. And actually, they just covered it up with makeup for decades, probably. And then during the pandemic, it gave them time to not wear makeup and just sit in front of the mirror and actually say, you know what, this has been bothering me, actually. And it gave them that chance to, jump in with consultations with skin doctors, with dermatologists, and get some medical grade skincare to really transform their skin. So we spoke to probably almost 1,000 patients probably over the pandemic time for just skincare.
Yeah, it must have been the most, again, you're not going to repeat that again. It just must have been the most crazy time, but you being able to speak to people and be able to do something, it must have helped you. You're helping them, just everyone's just connecting, just keeping it moving. Did you feel that you were actually able to give them, you might not have been able to see them, but could you give them some good practical advice, get them started so that when they could come back and see you?
Absolutely. I mean, I felt like Batman during the pandemic. During the day, I'm wearing my scrubs, going to NHS, operating ventilators and helping people with these sort of things. And then, telling family members they should be saying their goodbyes and signing death certificates and, something completely different. And then coming home and be like, let me tell you about your rosacea.
That's where, I'm not just saying this, but this is where we literally bow down to you, because that is heavy. And see, to be able to, that's where the job that you do, to be able to do all of that, that's a special skill. You're in the right job, because there's so many of us that couldn't do that. So thank you. And you're still doing your NHS work now.
I feel like I just can't just leave the NHS. I have that relationship with it where I've been doing it for so long now. I might need to reduce the number of days, but I can't just leave it. I don't know why. And it just seems that's that relationship that we built over years and years and years. My colleagues, my patients. I just love what I do, to be honest with you.
And do you travel at the moment with work, or will you be traveling with work? Or again, did COVID stop you?
With my clinics, I actually have a clinic in London, Leeds, and Cheshire. So I'm kind of in between. I travel all the time, really. I mean, I'm at that stage now where I'm on trains. The operator, they're like, "Oh, Dr. Ahmed, welcome back." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. Third time this week."
That's it. You've got your own seat.
Yeah, I'm just there knitting in my seat, like, don't mind me.
Well, I don't think it'll be long before you'll be moving further up, because Glasgow and Edinburgh, we really do have, I would say we've got a love for our aesthetics, and we will have clinics here, but we don't have someone like yourself. So do you think that maybe as time moves on and you've got a little bit more freedom, you could see yourself moving further up?
Absolutely. I mean, with my North clinic, so the Leeds and Cheshire clinic, I probably see at least 3 or 4 patients from Scotland every time.
Traveling down.
People travel down. But with me, I have such a relationship with Scotland to start with, because I actually, when I moved from Libya, I moved straight to St Andrews, and that's where I did my first degree.
Oh.
No, I actually did my BSc in medical sciences in the University of St Andrews. So I just have got this relationship for Scotland, and I would love to go back one day.
Oh, and I could imagine a little clinic in St Andrews. That'd be very nice.
Darling, a bit of lunch, a bit of golf, and a bit of derma fillers.
Yes. The perfect dream.
Lovely.
And the other thing too that I wanted to cover, because it's something that bothers a lot of people and you do help to treat it, stretch marks.
Yeah.
That's a big one. So what do you find? Do people come to you with stretch marks that are quite severe, or do they come to you because, again, we're living in an age where we care so much about perfection that sometimes it's like a teeny tiny nothing, and you'll say, actually, we need to learn to live with the little ones, or a big mix of things?
With stretch marks, a really big part of what I do is actually managing expectations with that one. Ultimately, they will never go away. They will never completely go unless you physically cut them out. So, for example, for people that need tummy tucks, for example, and they've got some stretch marks in the lower part of their abdomen, actually during the operation, because they're going to cut through a little bit of them, they will reduce them.
Right.
Otherwise, it's all about managing what could we expect. Actually, improving the results, or the appearance by 50%. Sometimes that's fantastic to some people. Sometimes you can improve by 75%, but it will never be 100%. We offer things like lasers, which will really resurface them and make them not as deep. Things like microneedling is fantastic for that, because it builds up the collagen underneath. But with stretch marks, I always say try it and get a treatment done as soon as possible. When they're in that initial red-purple stage, that's usually the best time to get treatment done. When they become white, silvery, gray, they're a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and at that stage, they're a bit more difficult to treat.
Yeah. And I think most of us get stretch marks. I know I grew tall, so I had stretch marks. I didn't even realize I had them until you're looking at your hip one day and you're like, oh, grew. I did literally, I showed up. So I was like, oh, what's that? Too late. But again, I can completely understand, depending on where they are.
Yeah, exactly.
That takes me back, though, to what I was saying about managing, like you said, managing expectations. The Instagram generation, it's not their fault. I think if I was a teenager now and I saw pictures on Instagram and everybody looks flawless, that would affect me too. So do you sometimes have to explain to people that has been filtered? Do they sometimes not realize things have been filtered?
So the funny thing is, over the years, I've really seen a palpable change in people's expectations. So back in the day, people will come in with a photo of Angelina Jolie's lips, for example, and I want, that. Now people come in with a filtered photo of themselves. Oh. And actually, some of them don't look human anymore. Some of the photos, they're on Facetune, smoothing, removing, reshaping, reshuffling. Yeah. And I was like, that nose is a Voldemort nose. that nose is not compatible with life. You cannot breathe with that. So no, we cannot achieve those results. And actually, it takes a lot to kind of talk them off the edge a little bit and kind of bring them back to a realistic expectation sometimes.
And I think I'm saying this with love about the time that we're living in. but it does feel as if we can be quite narcissistic, doesn't it? We can't help it. It's not our fault that the camera phones created the selfie age. And then
Mhm.
because of that, people are analysing themselves. So I don't think you can blame people for looking at their faces and critiquing their bodies. But does it feel, compared to however many years ago, that we are becoming a little bit, I say self-obsessed with our looks, but I don't mean it as in we are, it's a negative thing. It's almost as if it's been pushed upon us.
Yeah, I mean, with the generation that's kind of growing up now, with Gen Z, for example, and kind of millennials,
Yeah.
they don't know a world without Instagram.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I mean, when I look at my nieces and nephews, essentially their first language is Instagram. You know what I mean? They don't understand a world without double tapping. That's not a thing. So actually, to that generation, their expectation and the versus reality are very, very different, because to them reality is social media, but actually it's not. Those photos are not a real representation of people. I mean, especially from my perspective, because I work with so many influencers, for example, I have seen what they go through. I've seen what they look like in real life, and it's just not the reality of the situation. And I think this is why I like what Scandinavia has done, where every photo, if it's been edited or reshaped or any sort of airbrushing, legally you need to indicate that it has been done. And I think that gives people awareness that, oh, that photo is not real. Like that person's body or face is not naturally looking like that.
I like that. And I think it's good that you say that, because I agree. And also, again, working in a different side of the industry, because I'm more the beauty side and do makeup artistry, I think it's really important that people know that there's always been airbrushing too.
Yeah.
Sometimes the argument that I hear is that people will say, oh, that's been airbrushed, that's been retouched. But going back to magazines, 50s, 60s, 70s, it might not have been digital, but they were still retouching. They've always retouched. It's
Absolutely.
not a new
Lighting,
thing.
like
So
playing with lights and shadows and reshaping and repositioning. I mean, that one photo that you'll see in a magazine probably took 2 days and a team of 30 people for that one photo to be
that's it.
taken.
And one of my favourite things, my mum grew up in the 60s, so Beatles age.
Love
And I
it.
thought it was so sweet that she said to me that when she was a teenager, she used to look at people like Twiggy. And at the beginning, obviously near the end, when they're selling their merchandise, that's when it clicks. But at the very beginning, all her favourite models, all her favourite actresses, she used to look at them and think, oh, I wish I had eyelashes like yours. Their eyelashes are so thick. It had never occurred to them that they had false eyelashes on, because they were so innocent and naive that they just thought, well, why can't mine look like that? Obviously, by the end of the 60s, the merchandise is everywhere, so you know. But again, I think it's good to know that in every era, you have to learn what's real and what's fake. And they didn't even know when they were 14, 15. They didn't realize that people were wearing fake eyelashes. They had no clue.
Yeah, I mean, it's similarly when Instagram started being very popular, say between 2010 and 2015, because it wasn't law then to put ads on things, on stories. People didn't realize that, her being very excited about her new coffee cup is actually, she's being paid to promote that coffee cup somewhere.
That's very true. You learn that the hard way, don't you, when you're younger and you're like, I need to buy that. I need to buy that. Why do I need to buy that? I don't actually know.
Apparently, it's the best coffee cup in the world.
Yes. Sold. And I also, now this is where we start to massage your ego, because I was taking notes of what people were saying about you. So my favorite review was, Dr. Ahmed is a perfectionist. I think that's a real compliment, because again, how often have we all had the experience where you felt as if you weren't being listened to, or you felt as if someone was doing what they wanted to do and what you're like, I didn't get a say in that. They just did what they felt I needed. So to be able to hear that, how does that make you feel?
I feel grateful. I feel grateful that people are noticing what I am actually doing out there, because ultimately it brings me back to my surgical days. Because before kind of doing GP, I was in surgery and plastic surgery and so on. And I remember one of my senior doctors at the time, she turned to me and we were just about to operate on someone. She's like, who's the most important person here? So she was the lead surgeon. So in my head, I'm like, you?
Mm.
She's like, no, the patient.
Mm.
And I was thinking, they're like, oh crap, yes. Obviously, it's that person, even though that patient is asleep, because obviously we're about to operate. And that never left me, really, that in any situation when there is a patient involved, they are the most important person in the room, ultimately. And I think because that's a concrete fact in my head, I always try and make them realize that I know that you're the most important person here. And I think people really appreciate that and appreciate being listened to and being heard. Because sometimes, or not sometimes, almost all the time, when people come in, they don't just tell me I don't like X. They tell me X makes me feel like Y. And they tell me the deepest, darkest secrets of how they really feel. When they're at home with the curtains shut, when they look in the mirror, how do they really feel about themselves? And I think that is such an honor that probably no one else out there really experiences, unless they're in my line of work, experiences the unfiltered truth of someone's opinion about themselves.
So
And I think that's,
that means you're a psychologist too. So you really do have to wear all your hats, don't you?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's multifaceted,
Yeah.
but do it with a smile and no one knows how complex it is.
Well, I hope at Christmas you get some really good gifts then, because you've been listening to everybody's problems throughout the year. Better be some excellent presents.
I've received some nice things over the years. I mean, I always got a couple of bottles of champagne, which we love.
Yes, that's always good. That's always good.
Mhm.
And I liked, again, looking at the website, I loved the fact that you said steady perfection over quick results. I really liked that.
Because ultimately, sometimes people think that they need to achieve their final result in one visit.
Mhm.
And I think it ties back to the time that we live in, that everything's so quick.
Yeah.
But actually, you can be quick with your face. You can be quick with your body results. These things take time. And if you think about it, if you've been dealing with, an issue with whatever structure in your face, if it's taken you 35 years to come to me, it's okay that it will take us 2 visits to correct it.
See, and again, what you're saying, before I'd spoken to you, I wasn't against it, but I had always thought, well, if I'm speaking to someone, will they try and make out that everything's easy, everything's quick, everything's this? And you're actually telling me that you know how to do things, but you're making it clear that it'll take as long as it takes.
Exactly. You
I
can
like
rush these things. Sometimes, also another thing, and I really love approaching things this way. So whenever someone comes in, I give them the mirror and I tell them, when you look in the mirror, what do you notice about yourself? Because actually, for someone like me, I will probably notice things about people that they will never notice about themselves. And actually, if, for example, smile lines don't bother you, they can be as deep as they are. No
Yeah.
one cares. But actually, if it is that bit of hollowness in your under eyes, that's really what gets to you. That's the most important thing to do then.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're speaking my language. Watch that Scottish clinic. You better.
Oh, I might be seeing you in Leeds or Cheshire soon.
That's it. Getting my train down soon. That leads me on though, just to finish off, what are your plans for the future? And by that, I mean, it can be the immediate future, it could be long-term goals. I see a lot of people that are the experts on some morning shows, and they don't have, as far as I'm aware, any morning shows that I watch, they don't have an expert that's the aesthetics. They tend to more have someone that maybe does skin care or maybe does body care or hair care, but I don't think they've got anyone that does aesthetics. Are you aware of that?
They don't have many that do these things. I
No.
mean, there have been kind of aesthetic doctors over the years that
Yeah,
come
just
in for little segments
pop
here
in,
and
yeah.
there. Ultimately, that is a goal of mine,
Yeah.
hopefully one day to be involved in that conversation, because I actually feel like that conversation about aesthetics doesn't get brought up to the surface unless something horrific happens, unless they're critiquing the system, unless they're critiquing, see, this is why it's not good,
Yes.
Whereas actually, people's opinions and people's approach to things doesn't change unless you actually give them positive information as well, not just negative information. Because if you just keep telling them aesthetics leads to botchery, they will never understand that actually there are certain injectors out there that will give you the results of your dreams.
That's a really good point, because like I said, there's botched, but then you get the other extreme, which I also love, things like 10 years younger, when they make a big difference in someone's life. But you're right, there isn't anything in the middle, which is just someone who is able just to talk you through the realities of choosing to have a procedure. I mean, I got Invisalign because when my wisdom teeth were removed, my teeth moved. So Invisalign is an aesthetic of some sort. So I'm saying I've never done aesthetics. That's not true then, because I actually did do Invisalign. So if someone had only spoken about it when it was a disaster, that would have put me off. But I was able to see people that were just talking about it and the practicalities of what it is.
Exactly.
So you're right. If you had someone like yourself who was just able to say, this is what you should expect, this is what you should not expect.
But sometimes, I mean, I've come across so many horror stories, particularly during the pandemic, for example, and it's because people didn't actually know what to look for. If no one told them what makes a good injector or what makes a good cosmetic doctor, they will never know, because ultimately people are not doctors. They don't know what makes, for example, someone like me, I can look at another doctor and be like, are you good or not? I've gotten my way of sussing them out, essentially. But actually, for a patient that's never been involved in this world, they don't know. So sometimes you need someone to give them that kind of, if your doctor is not GMC registered, if they've not done at least 1,000 of these procedures, if, run. They are not your doctor.
That makes so much sense. So plans then for future, definitely if TV comes up, take it. More things like British Vogue. Oh yeah, more Vogues around the world.
I mean, hopefully, we've got a couple of things with TV happening at the moment. I'm speaking with a few TV channels. I've got a couple of appearances coming up, which I'm really, really grateful about. But ultimately, I would love to have my own TV show one day, actually. I've got so many stories that I've come across over the years that ties in with my, POC background and my LGBT background as well. And I think there's a lot of facets to what I do that's not just involving a syringe. And I would love to be able to kind of share this with the world one day.
Oh, I really hope we do get to see that. As I say, you've got your doctors that we know quite well in the US because they've got their shows and they've got their profile. I really hope, I've got everything crossed then, that these all actually come off and we do get to see them. That'd be fantastic.
Fingers crossed. You'll be my first guest.
Thank you.
I'm ready.
And I've went back on everything I've said. I'll just put my face in front of you and say, do.
I am ready.
What would you do? Oh, it's been such a pleasure. And I really can't wait to see then the next year ahead, and keep an eye out for everything that you're doing. And thank you. Oh, and before we go, what is your website? What's your social media so everyone can check it out?
I am at The Aesthetics Doctor on everything. So that's The Aesthetics Doctor on everything: website, Instagram, TikTok, on YouTube. I release a lot of content, educational and informative, for both patients and doctors as well. And I try and release a video on YouTube every single week to discuss a treatment or something new in the industry. So if you want to know more, check it out.
Brilliant. And I didn't know you were on YouTube. I missed that. So I am going to subscribe today, and I would recommend everyone else subscribes today too. I'm going to check that out.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Honestly,
thank you. I have loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, lovely. Bye.
Thanks.